everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Content Alchemy. Matt, it appears that it's kind of loud where you are.
Every damn day, I swear. It is summer in my house, and that means my kids are just always home. And they're so loud. They don't think that they are. But it's alright, I guess.
And you know what? Sometimes we don't hear it. You know, like if we're on a Google call or something, it's usually we're not hearing anything because it's able to mute it. But here we are in Riverside, and you've got a great mic who picks up everything. And I just know all the drama in your house. But I do know, I think they're going to the library, and I have never been more jealous in my life.
Yeah, it's the best to go to the library. Alone. No. I love my kids. It's just we are it's late July now, so we are approaching the end of summer, and I'm excited. It's tough to work from home, right? Like, even I don't know. I mean, I've been doing it for so many years now. Like, whenever I first started Made by Things, it was just me working out of a one-bedroom apartment. At that time, we only had a small child. Now we have 3 children that are all running around like crazy all the time, and it's tough, but you make it work.
It's tough. That's all right.
Yep.
When I was a kid, when I'd go to the library, I would always ask to go to the library for my birthday because it's like, I would just want peace and quiet. I was an only child, and I guess I needed more peace and quiet than I was already receiving. So, c'est la vie. What can we do? All right. Today, we're not talking about the library, unfortunately. We're talking about the advantages of motion branding. That is our theme today, motion branding. Okay. Why are we talking about this today? We've been talking about motion branding a lot lately, and to be really honest, I think everybody else has too. It's something that keeps popping up in our conversations, and talking with other artists too, they're bringing it up. A lot of people are kind of trying to dip their toes into the motion branding world, and seeing more and more brands, giving that a beautiful rebrand, especially lately. We've been seeing some really, really nice branding pages that have been coming out, which we'll talk a bit about. But we're just going to kind of dive into it. But we're going to start with just in general the importance of branding and having a really clear and concise brand guide. We have worked with brands with beautiful brand guides and brands with 0 brand guides, but
Right.
We're just going back in their history to see if this makes sense. So something that's really important about having a good brand guide, obviously, and I think most people that would be listening to this recognize that it's a lot about consistency. Making sure that everything looks good across all of your platforms, but also that you're communicating clearly with your audience about who you are, your personality, kind of your general overall tone. And if you're having brand or motion branding in there, kind of how things are moving, which also adds another level to your personality. So, Matt, I'm going to start off with just the importance of branding. How do you feel?
Yeah. Well, let me go back to something that you said a little bit ago first. You said that, like, lately we've been talking a lot about motion branding. And I think that a lot of it is, there's this weird, like, seasonal thing that sort of happens. I've noticed, I guess, over the last 15 years, where a lot of brands are never really focused on 2 things at once. And those 2 things being campaigns and branding. So it often seems like the focus is either one or the other. And it's this pendulum that sort of swings back and forth. Now, there are some larger brands that can do both of those things at the same time. However, I think that we kind of saw this last during COVID, where people are like, nope, nobody's buying stuff. Let's not work out our campaigns right now. Let's instead focus on our brand and getting that to a place where it needs to be, make any updates, do any sort of refresh, and just make sure that people know that we're out there. It was almost insensitive in a way to be pushing product at that point. So
Yep.
I believe that we've sort of gotten back So after COVID, it sort of swung back towards campaigns, and now it's swinging back towards brand focused at this point. But this swing back towards branding has been a little bit more different, because this time around, I believe that motion and just video content is just obviously bigger than it's ever been and more important than it's ever been before. So we're seeing that, yes, rebranding, these fresh new brands are great and good, but there's another important component of everything, which is the motion branding side of things. It's there to be able to show a brand, okay, yes, this is how you look, but how do you move exactly? What is your personality, right? Now, there are some great brands out there that you can really feel that personality without movement, but overall, we need to see, especially for us as a motion studio, we want brands that have, having brand guides like you talked about, like that's great and that's good. But whenever we see, oh, okay, like we see that the brand moves in these arcs, we see this kind of ease to it, we see that here's these types of transitions, we start to really feel that personality. So often when we work with a brand that doesn't have motion guides, we're just trying to, it's just kind of our adaptation of like, all right, here's what we feel like this does, right?
Yep.
So it's never uncommon for us to work with a brand and then they end up having to or wanting to change some of their motion guides because they're like, oh, this is great. But if somebody else is making something else in the company, we have two different logo animations, we have two different types of pacing through videos, it's going to lead to unrecognizable content, which, as we talked about, or as you talked about, branding is really about being recognized, right? Being felt. And it's the very little things that do that. So I guess my overall point of like kind of where we're at in this industry right now, or again, just as a market, is we are focused on that branding side a lot more, and brands are thinking about motion or having to think about motion more than they've ever had to think about it ever before in the past.
And I love being in that spot because I feel like we're in a different area of storytelling, and I love this opportunity right now. I think it's crazy fun. But let's talk a little bit about exactly what motion branding is for those who might not be totally aware. I mean, obviously it's adding movement, but what is it really beyond just kind of adding movement? So motion branding is considered a subfield of graphic design, which I think is interesting. It blends video and animation into your overall branding. Static visual elements are brought to life by integrating movement, sound, and visual effects. This is part of the brand guides to ensure all motion, animation, or live action are treated similarly across all platforms and mediums. That is our sterile definition of it.
It's a good one, though.
It is a good one.
It's very concise, and I mean, that's better than what I could have said. So I like it. Nice job.
It was a combination of let's see what everybody's saying. Here's our version.
Right.
But in this, okay, so blends video and animation into your overall branding. All right. So motion, and we're not just talking about animation. I know that we're, primarily we're a motion design studio. We do a lot of animation, yada, yada, yada. But it's also just general video overall. It can be live action. And that could be, what kind of live action are you doing? How are things being shot? Are you having a really shaky documentary handheld feel versus something smooth and polished and beautiful? Are you out in the woods or are you in a studio? These are all things to ask when you're going into that side of it as well, beyond just what is the overall motion of something.
Right, and it's asking the questions of why. Mm-hmm. This is always my biggest thing. Anytime I'm watching television, movies, I'm always like, okay, why did they do that shot? Why, if they go to a really wide shot, like why? Why did they choose that moment to go wide? And the answer is never, well, it looked nice. If it is the answer, then it's just fluff, really, at that point.
It's a bad answer.
Right. It's not good enough. And that's where brands need to start taking a lot more cues from that film world of, hey, we need to make sure that we're answering for everything.
Yeah.
So in a brand guides for live action alone, right? Like this could be just one segment. It's, hey, if we do wide angles, why are we doing wide angles? If we do close-ups, what are we trying to show with those close-ups? What does it mean when we show those things? Like you talked about, are we on a tripod? Are we handheld? Do we want it to feel more human, or do we want it to feel more robotic? Do we actually want this thing to be shot on a robotic arm, right? Like there's so many different ways that you can go with that. And yes, motion branding is a visual thing that you see and you feel, but there's so many questions that have to be answered. It's not just let's make this thing look pretty. It's let's make sure that we are making every motion decision is made to reflect a purpose of some kind.
Well, I mean, even going into, I mean, you always see the photography section in a brand guide, which is great, but photography only gets you so far because what's happening with that camera beyond just the still image. So, static visual elements brought to life by integrating movement, sound, and visual effects. Sound is really key there as well, and I think that ties directly into motion branding, because what is really good motion without very, very good sound design? What does your music sound like? You know, are you doing heavy effects? Is it lighter? Is it softer? Is it more childlike? You know, is it something really big and cinematic? How is the sound impacting your overall motion design? And it's something that nobody talks about, and it makes my heart sad.
Yeah, you're totally right. I don't even know how many times I've actually seen that in like really, really great brand guides. We often, I don't know, we might get some like references occasionally of like, hey, we like this, we've used this in the past, and like we want to try to generally make it work.
Yeah. But
really getting into it and even saying like, okay, there's bells in every track, and these bells should symbolize this or this. I mean, I'm not huge into music or anything like that, but there's like just different structures. That's like, okay,
yeah,
what structure are you going to go with? And I guess that's the thing. If a motion brand is done well, you should be able to tell or recognize a brand within a few seconds with your eyes closed, with your eyes open. Being able to see certain colors. I always think about this with IBM. IBM, I think, does an amazing job of this, where I can generally tell an IBM commercial or video like very quickly, just based on even things like the voiceover. Like, what kind of voice are you going to use? Is it going to be the same person's voice on all of them? Will it be, what's the tone of voice with that, right? There's so many different little parts and pieces to it that if you are consistent with all of it, that's the goal, right? With a brand, you just want to be recognized super fast.
I'd also say, feel how you will about them, but Chick-fil-A also has incredible sound design. You always know what their commercials are because it has that one kind of like plucky guitar in there, maybe a little piano, but it's very country, it's very rural, and it's always the same. It's very, very minimal, but it works. It works. You can tell just from the sound. If I'm in the other room, I know that that's the commercial that's playing. I don't even need to hear anything else. I know it by the music.
Right. And I always think, I'm like, are we just crazy? Like, do we put far more attention into this than we should?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think that this stuff is important because it's subliminal messaging on a completely other level. And I don't know, it's recognizable. I mean, you know a Danny Elfman score versus an Alexander Desplat score. You know, you can hear those differences when you're watching a film, right? You know that this is not a Danny Elfman score. It's, that stuff matters. Whether we're thinking about it or not, it is recognizable. We're hearing it. We're part of it. We're living it. We're breathing it. It's there. Brands are part of our lives. We're out there. All right.
Yep.
Part of the brand guides to ensure all motion. Yes, put the stuff in your brand guides. Please send it to people. Animation or live action or sound or visual effects, whatever. Treated similarly across all platforms and mediums. All right, that is a big part of this. Treated similarly across all platforms and mediums. Your Instagram shouldn't look different from your website.
Right.
Your website shouldn't look different from your commercials. These things should be interconnected. They should feel like a bigger piece of an overall story.
Right. There has to be a very high level of discipline to really get the benefits of just good branding in general, let alone motion branding. And I feel like that's where we see a lot of it sort of fall apart, is when we start to look at different platforms. And a lot of it is because a lot of these companies generally have different people managing these different platforms. The same people that are doing social media are not the same people doing TV ads in most cases. And when that happens, again, you're kind of left to just interpret what you have in front of you. You make this framework for people to work in. And yes, there should always leave an element of creativity for people within any brand. You don't want to be so prescriptive to where it's paralyzing in a way of like, all right, well, I don't see where we can go with this. But at the same time, it's like, all right, what things are we okay with being open to interpretation, and what things need to be a certain way? So, like, I guess I want to be clear on that. Like, we're not necessarily talking about everything needs to, like, be completely defined. But overall, things need to be a little bit more defined than what I've generally seen in the past with a lot of these motion guides.
Pirates of the Caribbean and the pirate code. That it's not a set of rules, it's a set of guidelines.
There it is.
That's the key. It's not a set of rules, it's a set of guidelines. You should follow pirate code.
Pirate code. Oh, man. There it is.
You're welcome. I'm just pulling that reference out. Yep. You're welcome. All right. I think Hans Zimmer did the score for that anyway. You're welcome. Okay, so that is part of our storytelling, which gets us into why does motion matter? Okay, this is kind of our answer to why does motion matter, but we'll go into more depth. Motion branding is a storytelling tool. It both enhances the visual appeal and aesthetic of a brand, while also giving it a personality and some individuality. It will also help your brand stay top of mind with potential customers or partners by intensifying its recognition.
Yep. It's interesting because I always think about quality. Like, okay, well, you have to be professional. There's a level of trust that comes with having good branding and good motion branding. And yes, you need a high level of trust when you're thinking about this stuff. And I used to think like, oh yeah, we would never use like a phone to record anything. You would never create content that's like kind of crappy, right? But my feelings on that over these last couple of years have changed, where it can be done really well still, even if it's at a lower quality, if it has great storytelling. And the challenge is always like, okay, well, how do you connect that to the overall brand?
Yeah.
And that's another gap that I see quite often. But like you said before, like whether somebody's watching a TV ad for a company, whether they're on their website seeing the motion on their page, and whether they're on social media and you take a look at what they're doing, even if they're like have a tweet of some kind, it should feel like the same brand across the board. Because again, that's the goal is that recognition. Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. And I think too, kind of like going back to that personality and individuality. That is part of that recognition. Is motion is giving it a different personality, intensifying the personality that you would get from still or from copy. I mean, it's why I feel the copywriters are incredibly important. It's why I feel the graphic designers are important. You can't just give these things to AI and hope that it gives it a personality, right?
Right.
It's important to have that intense personality so that way it's easily recognizable. Because if you're just doing the same thing as everybody else, what's the point, honestly? I mean, really, what is the point? Why even have a brand guide at that point if we're just doing the same thing as everybody else?
Right. I think about this all the time whenever I see people creating their logos with like an AI logo. Like, yeah,
Sure.
that's cool. It was able to make this thing, but it kind of defeats the whole purpose of a brand in
Yeah.
general. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's smaller companies that just aren't there just yet. And they're still working out their product and probably not thinking as much about brand. But even for us as a small studio, I'm always thinking about brand. And maybe that's because that's part of what we do for the clients that we have. I think so much about like, all right, every time that like I post anything, anytime that we post something, what is that tone? What shapes do we use? What do those shapes symbolize? How do those shapes move? Thinking about all these things because yes, I don't know, you want people to feel something, and that's at the end of the day, I think that's kind of where we're at. It's not just about looking professional anymore. It's about making people feel something, and not. I don't say that as like, oh, they should be emotional about whatever it is that you're saying. It could be a number of different emotions, but to me, there's nothing better than putting a brand in motion to be able to understand its personality a little bit more, to see how it feels. One of the examples that I always bring up, probably for the last maybe decade or so, this is a conversation that's come up with so many people that we've worked with, where they see what some of the big brand companies, studios are doing. Places like Pentagram. Pentagram is a studio in New York City, and they do some really just, killer work, right? Yeah. But it's not just about the work that they make. They also make sure to put the brand in motion during the pitching process. Mm-hmm. So they're not just saying, hey, here's what we think the logo should be, whatever. They're also saying, hey, here is the whole thing, and we also have it in motion so you can really feel how this thing is actually working.
Yeah.
So this is one of the ways that we've actually partnered with a lot of people in the past, is kind of through brand agencies that are looking to kind of take some of their skills with just graphic design and be able to put them in motion, because when a client in the end can be able to see, okay, oh, here is the personality, here is what's being shown, it's far more powerful and far easier to see how this thing actually works once it goes into the real world. Because again, that's the thing. Right now, I can't think of a single brand that just stays static at this point. And why are we still thinking about things as just that and thinking our job is done? Yep. No, we have to think about these things in motion where people are actually seeing them, right?
And I think too, you hit it on the head a little earlier. It's that we're not just making people emotional, right? I think that's a really key thing in there. It's connection, and I think emotion is subjective, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can connect with somebody by making them cry. You can also connect with somebody by making them laugh. You can connect with somebody by just making them feel like they're related to a larger whole. Even if you're working with maybe something that's a little more sterile, if you're working in technology or something, it still impacts people, right? There's a reason that your brand exists. I mean, we're not just making things because, like this doesn't impact people at all. Everything impacts everybody, right? It's a butterfly effect. So how is it that this thing connects to the greater public or to your audience, whether that be on a really, really deep emotional, I'm crying level, or at a different level, and something else. You're trying to hit them in a different part of their feels. I think that stuff is so important, and it works with your personality so much that you know, I mean, we make a lot of work and we had a lot of clients that say, yeah, you made our audience was crying in the best way possible, right? But also, man, it's so good to be able to make people laugh, to bring joy to the world. Like, that stuff matters. That personality matters. But yeah, I think it's connection over just, oh, you know, we're making people emotional. It's connecting. It's connecting. And
Right.
I think don't fear it. You know, don't fear the connection.
It's interesting. I think about Frank and Allie. Frank and Ollie. Sorry, it's a little accent getting me there. Two of the greatest Disney animators ever, right? And they were huge proponents in the illusion of life. Like, how do we create the illusion of life?
Yeah.
Now, these were obviously talking a little bit more towards character animation, but this stuff has found its way in brands in really interesting ways. Like thinking about like the principles of animation. These guys developed those principles, and it wasn't just them. It was a whole team of people, but they generally get the credit for it.
Yeah.
And again, I think I mentioned it earlier, but it's things like arcs. Like, people move in arcs. We don't move in straight lines. We're not robotic. So thinking about that now, like, okay, how do brands move? Well, they should move in arcs. They should feel human. And that's such a weird place to go. But I don't know. It's just almost like this Frankenstein world of like, how do you build a brand? And like, all right, well, if this is the tone, okay, if you had like, okay, our brand is a lot more on like the goofy side. This is an easy one right here. But like, like, okay, well then your arcs should be huge and exaggerated.
Yep.
And there should be an incredible amount of ease in them, right? Like, thinking about things like a character a little bit more than just how does this shape move. I think that's where motion branding really elevates a static brand at that point, where it's, again, like if we're talking about Disney characters, again, they're all a little bit goofy and they're all whatever, but all of those principles should really show up any single time here. So those principles of animation, there's 12 of them. There's squash and stretch. There is anticipation, staging, keyframe animation, which maybe doesn't apply as much. But we got follow through, overlapping action, ease in, ease out, arcs, secondary action, timing, exaggeration, solid drawing doesn't, again, super apply. And then appeal. Appeal is that last one right there. It's like the charisma of whatever this thing is. I've never seen anyone put those principles of animations or principles of animation to brands like we should be thinking.
Yeah.
We see a lot of people that are like, oh, let's make it move. But ultimately at the end of the day, it's like it's a personality, it's a life. We have to think about like a person.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of story and that has to be written in order to really fully understand who is the character. And, you know, I talk about like, okay, we as a small studio, we have a brand too. Truly a lot of it is me. It's my story. And it's, you know, finding people to add to our team that have a lot of the same beliefs that I have, that have the same tastes that I have. And I don't mean to like, everyone that's on the team is very important, right? But it has to start somewhere. And like,
yeah,
all small companies are like this, where the founder generally plays that role of they are the brand, and it's just easier that way when you're like, okay, well, I am the brand, so like here is how the logo works. And like, yeah, you look at the Made by Things logo and it's like, yeah, it's a little fun, a little goofy, I guess. Look at the work that we do, and it's a lot of it is a little bit more on that fun side, a little bit more colorful. Not that I'm like a super colorful person necessarily, but like it's my shoes are, I got some yellow Nikes on today. I don't know if you can see those.
I saw the toe. There we go.
But I don't know. Like, it's easier to go to a place like that. Now, obviously, companies need to think about things a little bit differently, where, what personality would your audience want to be friends with, right? And I think that's what brands need to think about ultimately when it comes to motion branding. So I really just went off crazy on that one, but
No, it was great. It was great. And I think you asked such a good question in there is your brand somebody that other people would want to be friends with? And who does your brand want to be friends with? I love that question so much because that's generally how I just approach everything in life is, I could totally be friends with them. I've convinced myself that I could be friends with anybody. Mm-hmm. So your brand should be friendly, right? Or you're being friends with just the right people. Your brand can also be scary and friendly too, I mean, there's its tonality, it's knowing who you're approaching and why you're approaching them. And making relationships. Your brand is, I've talked about this a lot in other podcasts throughout the time when we've been chatting, is that it's a living, breathing organism, right? And it should be treated as such. Let it be alive. Let it have a personality. Let it be a character. I mean, talking about Disney and Pixar characters, it's, the movie WALL-E, the most human characters in that movie are robots. So...
Right.
You can, it's applicable to anything. Anything could be human. As long as you try hard enough and personify it enough, anything could be human.
Right.
So.
We had a client in the past that we were trying to understand the brand of this company, and they said that the most helpful thing that they said was our CEO is a leather jacket wearing,
yes,
cool person. And I was like, well, that's super helpful to understand. If that's the brand that you're sort of going for,
It was a description where nerds in leather jackets.
Right. That's what it was.
Yep. It's such a good description.
Right. And that. There was no guide for that. It was just in a conversation. And now in an ideal world, yes, you put those things in motion, right? And show, what does that mean exactly? Because truthfully, we could take any logo there is and we can make it, give it the personality of anybody, right? If you think about different people, if you're thinking about, say, Thomas Jefferson, right? Okay, let's animate this thing like Thomas Jefferson would be,
Yep.
It'd probably be a lot more sophisticated and a little more elegant, but not afraid to kick some shit over if you have to. But and then when we bring up people or artists like Salvador Dali, it's just well, okay, well, that would be probably this trippy psychedelic
Yep.
kind of thing, this abstraction of how it sort of just moves, right? So I think that's ultimately it, right? It's not what is your brand, it's who is your brand, and that's where motion can come in and help determine what that is, and get everybody on a team in alignment, get all of the vendors that any company works with in alignment of here's what we're doing. So yes, if it's a text animation, maybe it's not defining okay, this needs to be 8 frames doing this, then 4 frames moving over, and then cuts out. This is, it should feel like this personality. And that way, every single person that's working with it can just make sure we're focusing on that personality, right?
Yep.
And it's giving them the hints and clues to be able to do that. That's what good motion brand guides should do. One of my favorite examples right now is eBay. They released their playbook. So the playbook.ebay.com is my most visited site over the last 5 months for sure. And they do just an amazing job of this, where they're defining who they are. Right at the beginning, there's a video, and then even lower than that, they're showing like, okay, here is some of the designs, and here's how they should generally move. It goes into things like how it moves for the web, how it moves for live action. We see a lot of like playful bits. We see a lot of how typography is used. But it's in motion. Everywhere you look, pretty much, that they're using motion with everything, even to show how rounded their corners should be. Let's see here. It says, modernizes our interface to reflect a contemporary aesthetic and user experience. Has grown over the last 5 years into what you see and experience today. That's all about the rounded corners. Like, that's it. Like, they have a description for why they chose to do that. And their rounded corners, they have it animated on their playbook, right? And again, these are little clues that they sort of leave behind for a brand to be able to be recognized in the future in any situation that they find themselves in.
Well, and you were asking earlier the question of, does anybody even think about this stuff? Yeah, people think about this stuff. A rounded corner versus a sharp corner are two totally different vibes. A rounded corner is significantly friendlier than a sharp corner. I mean, we're recording in Riverside right now, and there is not a single sharp corner in this entire
Right.
thing. It is only friendly and rounded. It's all bubbly. That stuff matters. That is, I mean, it's subliminal. It's there. You might not think about it, but your audience is being, that's a different story that they're being told.
Yeah, it's a personality. It's like, again, when you meet a person, and maybe this is gonna sound bad, but like we judge people based on what they're wearing, right?
Yep.
We choose to wear clothes to be judged by, and that's what this is, right? It's thinking about, okay, yeah, like here are the types of clothes that that brand should wear, but also like, how does it move? How does it speak? And all of these different things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think most people listening at this point, we all know the importance of brand. Like, well, I guess what we're trying to say here is really that importance on motion branding has never been higher than what it is today.
Yeah.
And there's not enough brands that are thinking enough about it, really.
Well, I think that's the question for this week then that we should be sending people off with is, are you thinking about your motion branding? And are you thinking about who your brand is and who your brand would be friends with? Because that's part of that overall personality, and your motion is going to impact that.
Yep. Agree.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, yep.
That is all.
That is it. That is all. Those are our final thoughts. Yep. All right, everybody. We'll both. I don't know why I said I. We'll both be here. Otherwise, I'm just talking into the abyss.
Where am I going?
I don't know, man. Matt, I don't know where you're going. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. But until then,
stay magical.
Content Alchemy is presented by Made by Things. To learn more about us, check out madebythings.com. And if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, send us a message at alchemy@madebythings.com.